and challenging toxic locker room culture. Former Australian rules footballer Mitch Brown has become the first openly gay or bisexual man in the 129-year history of the AFL. Brown, who played 94 games for the West Coast Eagles between 2007 and 2016, told the Daily Aus that hiding his sexuality took a heavy toll and was a major factor in his early retirement. It was never once an opportunity to speak openly or explore your feelings in a safe way, he said. The AFL had been the only major men's professional sport in the world without an openly gay or bisexual player, even post-retirement. Brown said he hoped his announcement would create safety, comfort and space for others. He also spoke candidly about the hypermasculine culture of the sport, recalling homophobic slurs on the field, and even a teammate once saying he'd rather be in a cage full of lions than shower next to a gay man. Experts say the revelation is historic, though real change depends on grassroots culture. Brown is being very open about the problems that need fixing, said Monash University researcher Eric Dennison. Brown, now 36, urged empathy and told closeted players, "I see you and you are not alone."
Canberra promises major environmental law reforms by 2026, aiming to strengthen protections while balancing development and climate goals. The Australian government has vowed to overhaul the country's national environmental laws before 2026, in what it describes as the most significant reform in decades. Environment Minister Tanya Plibersek confirmed the commitment, saying the current Environment Protection and Biodiversity Conservation, or EPBC Act, is outdated and no longer fit to deal with challenges such as climate change, biodiversity loss, and sustainable development. The pledge follows growing criticism from environmental groups who argue Australia's existing laws fail to provide adequate protection for threatened species and ecosystems. The government has promised to establish clearer national standards, stronger enforcement mechanisms, and streamlined approval processes that would give both developers and conservationists greater certainty. Industry groups have long complained that delays in assessments hinder investment, while environmental advocates say weak regulation has led to irreversible damage to natural habitats. The overhaul is expected to include the creation of an independent environmental protection agency to monitor compliance and enforce penalties. Plibersek stressed the reforms would balance economic growth with protecting Australia's unique natural heritage. Critics warn the government must avoid watering down protections in the name of efficiency, while business groups are urging swift passage of the new framework.
Doctors warn NSW hospitals at breaking point as 45,000 emergency cases swamp departments in just 5 days. New South Wales hospitals are experiencing unprecedented overcrowding, with senior doctors warning the crisis is among the worst they have ever seen. A surge in winter illnesses has left emergency departments struggling to cope, as more than 45,000 people presented to EDs across the state in the past 5 days. Health Minister Ryan Park said the figures highlight the extraordinary strain on the system, with staff working around the clock to keep services running. Our emergency departments are dealing with some of the highest presentation numbers we have ever seen, he said. Doctors say waiting rooms are packed with patients suffering from flu, COVID-19 and other seasonal illnesses, with ambulance delays compounding the problem. Some hospitals have reported patients waiting more than 24 hours for a bed. The Australian Medical Association warned the situation is unsustainable, urging the state government to expand capacity and provide immediate funding for additional staff. The crisis has reignited debate over chronic underinvestment in public health and the shortage of frontline workers. Mr. Park acknowledged the challenges, stressing that new measures are being fast-tracked to relieve pressure, but admitted there are no easy fixes.
A mental health crisis among Australia's youth has been laid bare, with new government data showing that a third of teenagers experienced suicidal thoughts or behaviour in the past year. The alarming figure underscores the urgency for stronger intervention and greater investment in mental health services nationwide. Experts say the findings highlight how social pressures, academic stress, cost of living strains, and the lingering impacts of the pandemic continue to weigh heavily on young Australians. Health professionals warn that without robust support systems in schools and communities, the crisis could worsen. The data has prompted calls from advocacy groups for expanded early intervention programs, improved access to counselling, and more resources dedicated to suicide prevention. They argue that young people are often unable to access timely professional help due to long waiting lists and service gaps, particularly in regional areas. The government has pledged to review existing support frameworks and expand helpline resources, but critics argue immediate and comprehensive reforms are needed to save lives. The figures have intensified debate over the adequacy of Australia's mental health response, with campaigners insisting that protecting young lives must become a top priority.
Melbourne University has been found to have breached privacy laws by tracking the movements of students during campus protests in 2024, according to the Victorian Information Commissioner. The watchdog revealed the university secretly collected and stored location data through Wi-Fi and surveillance technologies without obtaining proper consent. The protests, which centered on student activism over climate change and international policy issues, saw thousands gather across campus grounds. Investigators found the university's monitoring system recorded data that could identify and trace individual participants, a move deemed unlawful and disproportionate under state privacy legislation. Privacy advocates have condemned the breach, warning it sets a dangerous precedent for surveillance within academic institutions. Universities should be places of free expression, not covert monitoring, one campaigner said. Melbourne University acknowledged the findings, but defended the practice as a measure to ensure campus safety. However, the Commissioner stressed that safety concerns must still comply with legal privacy standards. The case has reignited debate over digital rights and the extent of institutional surveillance in Australia. Calls